Hi, I'm Randy Wooden, and welcome to another in our Edge Library series. This time talking to job hunters about recruiters, and this is part 2 of our recruiter talk. In our other library segment, we talked a little bit about the differences, let's say, between a recruiter, headhunter, a staffing company, that sort of thing. Now let's talk some definitions so when you hear phrases kicked around, you have a better idea of what they're actually talking about. I jotted a few of these down and we'll go over those, but these are terms or terminology that will tend to be used by recruiters, and so when you hear these things, you need to have an idea what they're talking about. First of all, you are known as a candidate. You're not really called an applicant. You are a candidate, and a candidate will go on what is called a send-out, and that is when a recruiter has generated an interview for you, you are being sent out on that. You're called a send-out, S-E-N-D-O-U-T, and a recruiter gets a send-out on a job order. You could call it a job requisition or a job rec, but typically they're called job orders or JOs, job order. So that's really what happens from the recruiter side. They get the job order, they try to get a send-out with a candidate, hopefully you. And we've talked before about, and this is just something I've used for many years, is what I call round peg, round hole. And we'll talk about that in some more detail in another library segment. But round peg, round hole essentially says, look, a recruiter can only generate money from the hiring company by producing a round peg to fit in the round hole. They can't take someone from another industry typically, or another job function, or someone whose money isn't right, or someone who's, if they don't pay relocation, then logically they're probably not going to get someone to move cross country. So there are a variety of parameters in place that really make someone a round peg to put in that round hole. Let's talk now about also the life of a recruiter and some of the things that you may hear kicked around. One is you hear the word contingency or contingent placement, and another one might be a retainer or retained placement. We'll talk about that for just a moment. First of all, contingency means just that. It's contingent upon something happening. So I might get a job order from company X that says, Randy, go out, or Randy, I want your company to go out and find the round peg to put in a round hole, and this is the shopping list. You need to have a candidate that has the following credentials or backgrounds or skills, whatever. And I'm working on a contingency basis, so I don't make a dime as a recruiter unless I make the placement, in which case typically I'll earn anywhere from, gosh, it can range from 15% to 30% and anywhere in between. It's a negotiated rate between the hiring company and the recruiting firm. That's contingency. Now another one is called retainer or a retained search, and typically retained searches are conducted for high-level positions. I mean, let's face it, if company X, fairly large company, has an opening for a CEO, they're not going to put it on Monster or Career Builder. They're not going to send it out to 10 or 15 recruiting firms to go out and beat the streets for a CEO. Not going to happen. What they'll do is they will contract privately with a retained search firm. That retained search firm, just like if you were going to hire an attorney, you pay a retainer. That means you pay part of that fee up front and then part later, and perhaps a third even later on, or whatever's negotiated. But still, you as a job hunter don't pay a dime, nor do you pay a dime on those contingency bases. So that's really the difference between retainer and contingency. When I was a recruiter, most, not all, but most of the searches we did were contingency. When we did some high-level searches, sure, and we were the only game in town, then typically a retained arrangement is what makes sense. But a retained business is good. The thing is with retained business, if you don't produce and consistently produce the right results, you no longer have a job placing people with that organization. Something else to talk about, too, that really has come into play over the last 10 years or so, typically has been the use of scanning software that recruiters will use and also in-house HR generalists will use, and they're screening predominantly for keywords. And so it's critical that for you to make it through that initial screening that your keywords match what they're looking for in their job description. Now the twist, and this is unfortunate, the job description versus the keyword search that's being performed, those two may have been written by different people. And so the job description could have been written perhaps even years ago. but whoever is doing the entering of the data looking for certain keywords may leave some out. They may tweak them a little bit to where they're not exactly what's in the job description. And as a result, if you follow what's in the job description, you may be missing the mark because the person who entered those key phrases, changed the game plan, moved the goalpost. That's a problem. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Hopefully this was of some help to give you an idea of some of the terminology and definitions that exist in the recruiting business. Again, with recruiters, you don't pay anything. It's a free service, but understand they're working for the hiring company. That's who pays their bills, and that's ultimately who they need to satisfy. That'll wrap it up for this in our Edge Library series, talking to job hunters about recruiters and some of the, again, terminology that goes on in part 2 of our recruiter segment. I'm Randy Wooden. Thanks for watching.